Good morning, Rinpoche, and good morning, Katrina. And welcome to all our online participants. We'll begin our session with some preliminary prayers.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, fellow destroyer, awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world, supreme God of beings to be taken, teacher of gods and humans to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakti Muni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paid 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise and I bow, with pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn round Nephew, for land, sun, and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Randa Manda I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Do you mind if I say?
Big song.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they don't want to just love me. There, Sanjay Chumden, no less on good. No, Karsa. Sisum Meda, don't get in down. Siba kamsum de sungara, dengam sungam sumi kamsha. Sisum midas, or take your language sama, any kiji ki conjura singing midavares, Tanda Mindrishil Ketina Kumi, Jordan Midavashi Kejilpa, Zondon Geshirisura, Sisum Meta, don't get in Dandas. Don't get in the Koluburdu, Kanayambana, Hagua Mavsi Leongude. Then you Luburdu Koya and Lukara. Oh, Tindu. Sisum Meta, don't get in Dandas. Drake Shikala Tatansus, then draw Rituna, Mileke, Laleke, Tanduleke. Oh, tendency to chigne she pumbu de dorian pumbu shandashi long. Yang pumbu de dorian pumbu shandashi long. Miri tondore lares yundudwa. Sakon doga tramgana shere sogara. Droe kichi kala tatan sus. Pumbu lene yang pumbu te to pumbu shandashi long chete. Doga tramgane kundramenda kanga trabgu yardo. Ordination. Oh, droe kichi kala tatan. Droe sendu namge londas. Garanzo tante kewa samburi silang yune, mi kewa re silang yune yako. Sidi ku keji pa zondu ngechira. Duwe chintu namge lo dan ras. Kura rangi ngangin jigdu gure, jigdu shanda mena kura ngangin jigdu gara. Namge lo de kura ngangi pa jigdu gudwa. Oti na shingaranzo chende kura rangshing pa. Kewa lo kasete ne tibatu te yubate. Keji ne kura rangshing zogi shigra. Dresendo namge londa de chede kiji so dret sungora namge lona sheres namge londa resar babju shinto nyon ros res arbone ma babchu chuma sayongina ko keji che made je ma chu te ma do de je ko chi yo mardo otina shangaran zo chede ko keji pa chiwe cholen nyer che so yer nyer ando yare sungora Dresa babjish ni ngayondos. Oh, di karusung gorsana. Ngaranzo kyawa sangbo lamba, kyawa ngemba tezu kanga, susu le, kyawa dan mikyo chebala tene, kyawa sange langirese. Oh, tezu kanga ne, doye kichi dan roa, mi kyawa risala ne midagwache, kichi dongere sungudwa, ya tichi duna.
So, as the Buddha Bhagavan has said in a sutra, these three realms, here referring to the desire realm, the form, and the formless realm, are impermanent, like clouds gathering in the fall. These six types of beings are sort of like actors in a play. The life that we have now is just like a flash of lightning, like a waterfall quickly cascading down. It moves very quickly. So here, all of these three realms are impermanent in the way that a fall cloud, the way that it sort of suddenly will gather and then just as quickly disappear. So too, these three realms are all impermanent. We are momentary. All of the beings within these three realms are momentary in that they change moment to moment. We don't last or remain for even a moment, but continuously are disintegrating. There's no sort of an additional cause that is needed for that kind of disintegration or cessation. These six types of beings, we can go from the hell realms and animals and hungry ghosts, humans and gods and so forth. It's like we are putting on different masks. We cast off one set of aggregates and take up another in the way that an actor in a play would put on different guises to play different characters. And so this is the kind of situation that we are in. The life that we have now, he continues, is likened to a flash of lightning. It's something that is here for a moment and quickly gone. And again, it naturally sort of disintegrates. There's no other additional cause needed for that disintegration. We remain here in the kind of life that we have for a certain number of years, but that kind of life is going to pass. We are going to have to face death every moment, actually, again, being momentary and impermanent. We are moving closer to that time of death. Here, explaining that as being sort of like a waterfall cascading down a steep mountain. This is something that passes very quickly. So right now we have a good rebirth, but the kind of future rebirth that we will take depends upon the karma that we create right now. So even at the time while we have this human rebirth, we should be aware of, think about the kind of actions that we are creating with regard to our future rebirth.
Oh yeah, they did that and that Carson goes in without a race on this arwa. Sending mirroring and Ranskanga Miluland here. Make your land with it. How to engage my race. Take what to see the sound of him without a race on the and the Carson goes in Azupe. Message to talk to engage on the Samlo course. Tangzingi Wanga and a chick. Some trouble show chair or no. Oh, tender member chairs. So Namido Chinako. Midaba ten this and Diba Midaba Sigua, Sangma Midaba. Roa, Arazuniam do Salco, Joanga Mele, Gachinium do, Kimzan Dra, Pama Pinchi, Sazan Karina, Roaniam don Dibate, Kumidaba res, Diego, Tavaris to stay on my Jiba Chuchan res, to Tangora. There's a tent on that Carishinaku, your mother. Oh, Tinder. Desiring de la Songora, somebody desiring de la, Dandan Dembachi Chegures. The Papa, Kiwatu Marazu, Dina Shikar Soda. Dumba Sanjum de Chinju Nambachina, Dumba Sanjum de Jamaba, Dumba Sanje, Dumba Tiggy Tempe, Sawapamba, Simjation at Sawapamba. Tungeda train de Yitzeva connection, Solia, Sawapamba, Temba Trubati. Temba Sawapamba Singdua. And it Tawade Kataka Chajasis, the Chetam Jemida was a Chetam Jetunga was a Dombanila Sobatasukan Yungudua. Oh, the Yonguduko, Midaba de Resed, David Ringdeliaco, Jambatan Sawashi Pensi Awujite with this. Nimajiko Kagandu Zoda, Diva Inako Kagandu, Sakba Inako Sondu, somebody Ako Sondu, or T. Dizako. Metsede Shebu, Chingbu Yuba, Rambu Shebu, Samlutanche, Roa, Energy, Tikpa Cheatachi, Soso Lonche, Yata Tamia, the Titan del Carina, Tikpa the Carina, Chevatinde, Rongo Marese. Metsede Tanda Dembashike, Songo. Oh, yeah, teach you Lana.
So here, this is all impermanent. And thinking about impermanence, we have this kind of human rebirth right now, but we can't remain forever. We are going to have to give up this human life. It's going to be exhausted, but yet we remain with this kind of sense that we will stay around forever. We have this grasping at permanence, that those things that are sort of gathered around us, like the kind of friends and family we have, whether it's our household or those relatives or whatever it is, we have this sense that all of this is stable, is permanent or lasting, but it isn't. The fact is that all of this is subject to destruction or disintegration by the very fact of its being impermanent. And so recalling, thinking about impermanence is not to sort of generate a kind of fear, but rather this recollection is in order to impel us, to have us strive to make this life meaningful, the kind of time that we have right now. The way that we can make our life meaningful is by relying on the teachings of the faultless teacher, the Buddha, who gave these kinds of undeceiving teachings, the very most basic being that we should abandon all kinds of harm, that sort of action that brings forth suffering, that will bring forth suffering for others as well as ourselves. And we should do as much as we can to benefit others. This, and as well as the kind of view of the four seals, that things are impermanent and impure and suffering and selfless and so forth. This kind of teaching, understanding that our life is impermanent allows us to want to make it meaningful through cultivating things like love and compassion. If we recognize that we only have a short time, that this life is impermanent, we won't strive for just the affairs of this life. It's in order to counteract that kind of feeling that this life itself has some sort of great meaning, and thereby we end up striving just to get like a lot of wealth or fame or good reputation and so forth. It is this recollection of impermanence that causes us to turn toward those things that are more meaningful.
Oh yeah. Oh, they did tanda karsoda. Said the Tondong in some without some lutangina. Didn't have you in some lutangina. And the conjiba mevacha resongora. Kala chu nyam semba, kala never you telling jiba yondan, chidalan kali. The committed the abusi gagora. Mese tondo te tandalia tibasan show me samche. Tanda yomare samcheroa. Shanlet saw pambata chini pembatu. Susu lega chingeri chineko, shall pengiri some pensim yukone legache. Oh, teach the co Penanimere lega chingeri chine. Oh, Tirinimudulunga Sula Sawachi mesam. Susu legache, the shall pembe legachini chigore. And the shall pendo lega over the abuchigins and the me legache, the shall pengiri some. Sambenaco Kiaregdoa. Oh, Tindico, Yirin Messinalco. Sets on the Samlocon, Cholam the Ardo Yara. Namilla Turdu Yara, Chambata Sawa, Tabarishing Dote Marita, Tever in the Liabocite or some local Yorda. Oh, Tico Ditene, Kalachu, Tini Jiba Mavish, Messi Abuchicane. Oh, that Chirena, simply Mavish, oh, Messi Abuchicane. Tigbasa, Toma Mavana, Tigba Mabusa, the Sendele Tigbasa, Tazula Shabache. And it's in a kind of Kiwatruba in Shell, Soapa, Pemba Truba in some. Oh, Tenderson and Nico, Shigalamuleko, Susan Java Meva. Oh, Tanjava Mesamsa, Shayabuchi trying to watch a Chivala and Jigma, this water. Chiva would give us some butcher line attached to Sarako. Less Sambusana, give us some Bulangerdo. Oh, the Indu Tatundanga Zukaresana. Oh, Joachima. Sada mi kyawan dwari tu nane, tandanga zu milite wa te ti metabache shantachi langurwa. Tindi ko kyawa chima lada mi kuma chuchuwe ten, tandanga zu chuchuwe de kone kondo peya tandali ten, chuchuwe ten sambuchi toba chabu yusam. Ti tandali mi kiwa lunga yusam ki kone shanla tsawa pa, chini ki pemba tumna. Ani kyawa chima nge son kichi kyuka lada milite kyusagi wara. Oh, Tenderson Lada Mikoba, Chitoba Chagisam. And the Lada Mikoba, Chiatiaco, Neson la Tode Yaburemato, Tendo Tewachi Marwa, Tele Tunge Yordo. Oh, Tindu Tungele Tendo Tarbachi Toba Chagosam. Rana Rawameba Pumbundo Linchekoba, oh, Tele Tendo Tarbachi Chagosam. Tarbatum de Lochirwa. Dechetuane, Duchetam Jekeching Medabada. Koa tungi rang shi chen bata. O tene ta mebe tongba ni la soba. O te zule chini ji baksha shani kumki yin samza chen. Rang chi bu taba toba samji degi mara sam. Sende pama la soba nyen de samata. O te zu samatam je rang dan rawa kiawa tongma meba ne. Koa kore tungi nyang nyang tanda tine shi tungi yuri bu nyang kongere. Tile tarwa chi chi kogre sam. Rang chi bu samatan jiwa mara sam ne. Rawa. Oh, Tennyson Jay, Shandazu, Tene, Tarbale, and go to Bachichegurism. They should do Thunder Island, the Bayomarate, Sendina Kyoane Kyo Cude, Kale Kerche, and Simjetam Jetungele Travada, Devalam go Tumge, Susu, Sambu Chambada Zawa, Dagbe Shanji Bechanju Simlisoba Tarche, Sambu Tarche, Langdurjane Tarchim Bashimbe, Kibu Kyankunse, Yunde Kunde. Sambu Tarchimba, Shen Tarchimba, Kone Simjinki Tundruba, Tundrum Genki Kansachi Chetuba Chiginsam, Deche do Chunigisam, and Nicolo Satam December shows, or to do Chilamang and Manducha.
No, no. So, recognizing that this life that we have will end, it's impermanent. So right now we have this good human rebirth, but we need to use it meaningfully, recognizing that it is going to come to an end. So at the very least, we should try to not harm others and benefit them as much as we can. Even if we are, say, going through our life and we have to go to work and so forth, we can have this kind of attitude where we think, I'm not going to harm any other being. And as much as I can, whatever work I am doing, I'm going to do for the benefit of others. And this kind of reflection upon impermanence helps our conduct to improve. We kind of can make this resolution that I'm going to act well as long as I am able to. Right now, while I have this kind of life, if I make this effort at doing good actions, at purifying all of those, confessing and purifying those kinds of negativities that I have committed in the past, it's actually the case that there's a verse that sort of encapsulates this, that when we reflect upon death during our life, then we are able to face death without any kind of fear. We can die without any sense of regret because it is decided, it is sure that based upon the actions that we have committed through our life, we are going to take a good rebirth in the future. So again, reflecting that our life is impermanent and we are going to have to take up another, we should think, well, I want to have a good rebirth in order to be able to continue to improve. I'm going to therefore stop the kind of causes that could lead to a rebirth in the lower realms and cultivate those sorts of causes that lead to a better rebirth, a good rebirth. But even that, if we think, well, a good rebirth itself is not stable, lasting happiness, it's still subject to suffering, and one is still subject to taking rebirth out of control due to karma and the afflictions. And so one thinks, well, I want to get out of this kind of cycle of taking rebirth, and thereby I'm going to study things like impermanence and selflessness and create those kinds of imprints of the things that will help me to get out of this cycle into some kind of lasting, stable happiness. But thinking further, we see that, well, all of these other sentient beings, my friends, my family, they too are in this kind of suffering situation and have been in this suffering situation, experiencing it for a very long time. And therefore, it's not right for me to just strive for my own happiness, but rather I want to be able to place them as well within that state of true lasting happiness. And therefore, I'm going to make effort toward being able to get to that goal, this state in which one perfects all good conduct, perfects sort of the view, as well as perfects all of this kind of love and compassion, such that one becomes in the nature of love and compassion, this state of Buddhahood wherein one has attained all good qualities and removed all faults and is able to fully benefit all sentient beings. And so with that kind of reflection, we should set a proper intention for listening to the teachings, thinking that we are doing this, we are listening to the Dharma in order to be able to attain that state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Oh yeah. Oh, 당아주 kasi 셰사르데 디임바카 소레. 다 베기 단당아주 데셰데 동반이다 덴제다 동바다 덴제 콜셰고라 원마셰데. 어디인데고 동바다 동반이셰데. 아니 베기 케바 속에 덴제 셰균이야 또 멘다시 카니 용그레스 챵바. 가시디 카르송고르세나. 아니 지다 그 너의 값소 쇼탐제 단단바 마두세라 랑시기 마두세라 라와도 마두세로 어떤데 마부용 거라 개바 차르제 갑갑리야 개바 마차체 수메 담메스체 텐데 갑용 거라 어디 인도자 다 개바 같이 간데서 거르잖아 동반이 시도장 알아서 통대하게 수자 뒤로르자 소소 라소고 어떠서 제바체체 동반이 시기도와 타티 쉐르바 로 풍부다 직도요마 다데리요마 데데세 당하다 타티 쉐르 제바체체 시기도와 기나시고 겨와도서이나 달레기가 말에 샬레기가 말에 밀레기가 말에 규밀레 겨와요 말에서 바까기도와 디인데고 겨와가 다다 샹다 니가 규밀레 겨와 시나라 니 만두베 겨와요 말에 디바까도 겨와가게요래 송거래 지다 겨와가게요래 겨와면도 삼거래 어디나 신고 달에 풍부 다다 풍부 지도 요말 타대도 요말 지글치 템베 수지 요말 템베 수지 요말 세로 지도 요말 타대도 요말 근데 제가 망보체네 너다 자식값 수송구도 와 대조 강가데 제바체네 바 달아서 바체도 nye 요말에서 nye 요나 랑위네 주바다 담바 주바세테레스 그래서 nye 매자다 그 매레스 동바레스 수 매바레 담메 다 매바레스 다이나 다다 수다치 펜르치게 통돼서 매신도 남기와래 그마다부레스 뭐 텐데 공부레스 송주치 용구도 와 뒤인도 공가라주 통역에 미그 시바 나베 시바다 원보다 대주 간거 참마 말에 대주 짐바나시 통나시 요 말에서 텐데 전에 지도 않고 바각셔거래 속자티로 렉살에서봐 겨와담메게 저카리나 바가고레스 가샤네야한테 당에도 페네칭게 동그레티더니 교마다고 삼을 땅고레스 어디 송구도 와 근데 송게 가서 어디 가진 가서 셰사린 봐 어디 지에서나야
So here, when it comes to then what we're discussing the kind of relationship between emptiness and dependent origination. And there were some earlier Tibetan masters that sort of interpret this in a kind of wrong way, or so there are some that would say, for example, there are sort of two viewpoints that we have gone through, and one of these is that generally in the sutras, when it speaks about things like, for example, in the Heart Sutra, no form, no feeling, and so forth, sometimes it adds this sort of qualifier ultimately or inherently, and sometimes they don't apply that sort of qualifier. Now, these individuals or these sort of masters look at this process of examining. We say examine, looking at whether, for example, all of these external phenomena like forms and so forth, or the person exist as one or multiple with their basis of designation, or look at the kind of sevenfold analysis of the relationship between those two, or they look at the kind of refutation that is done through refuting the four extremes of production. And so when they look at these kinds of refutations, like for example, if you refute that things are produced from a self, or produced from other, or from both self and other, or from neither, they think that, well, then production is refuted in general. And so here they understand this kind of refutation to establish that there is no existence whatsoever. So when we see in these various kinds of texts, like for example, Nagarjuna's root verses on wisdom, or other places, Chandrakirti, where we see these kinds of logical analysis, and when one searches for such a self and doesn't find anything, then that means that that self does not exist. And so for them, they sort of think that this doesn't exist at all. But yet, so the objects of like our senses, forms and sounds and so forth, they appear, but they appear in a way that they're like illusions, because they don't exist in the way that they appear. So this is the kind of the view that these masters take up, that everything has been refuted, but conventionally speaking, we can talk about sort of things appearing as illusion-like.
뭐야? 어디 independent 아주 sensitive 발람네 하고 있지래. 다르와 나라도 다가가가가 삼배 시그지 연하셔도 와. 어디 제주 당겨라 나고라. 가가가 삼가이 땅아 삼 슈침부시빈 저도 나고 가반도 세제여라. 나스 세드자네 소분한테 마 삼을당제 강디네 제야 삼을당겨래. 강변에 자다 주요 테네아도 내가 임버치 마로 소부친 직강디네 제야 당당자다 지수받은 로 내가 마로 암조다 그락바다 카다미다 나로 나자들네 나레데요 마라 어디나시 아니 서로데 소아대와 연구를 거리 동해 연구를 거리 땅용 연구를 거리 가부 연구를 동해 연구를 뒤 소아대 나레데요 마라 세요래 뒤레면도서 엔도시 삼루나랑 아주 뒤뒤리 마리 삼자게 도시 짜원지 마시 연구도 와 Shuchambo, Yabuchon, Yabuchoma, Susan, Namdon, Damidama, Mukido, the Surene, Dare de Omara, Remedosa. Number Sheba, Miki Sheba, the Nave Sheba, the Ne Sheba, Che Sheba, Luigi Sheba, Kangdili Sheba, T Sheba, Roa, the Surene, Dare de Medosa. Tinashene, Chiki, Pass some tanke, Miki Walla Semberching, Sember Less, Chora, Landa Medal Patola, Semberching, Tichuare. Teletene Condotanga, Yeda, Trado, and the Chalasoba, Gigura, Tesore, Duchi Pumbusigratella, or Tesore, Dare, Mendoza Samgura, Segiora, Timar, Timada, and then Mendoa Samgura, Tomba, Condora, Tata Mendoa Sam, or Tende Samton Sosolia, Tonsang, Samlocodus and Namutan Manda, Gina Gengerich, or one, some Satinde Samloco Yoda. Tata Mendoza, Tomba Samla. Young Pennon of Judge, Tewada Tungeta, Nevada Tende Yadua, or taking the only Jumada would share some mention to Tanda Social Tende now you go to Samsa, or Tinashi, Comgurese, Tandakare, Rangune me, ye, Saru Tende Yava Chegumarese, Koramba Kaya Kanga Kashan and Duris, Tomba Lola Chana, and a Tico, Condro Tanga, Trado to Kangal Pengrese. Or the Necom Gores on Guara. Yeah, teaching the Vache.
Mhm. So maybe it would be good to give kind of an example of this. So for example, like with respect to the I or the self, we hold really strongly to the sense of an I. But when we begin to search within its basis of designation, like we look at the form, we begin by looking through our entire body from the bottom of our feet all the way up to the top of our head. There's nothing that we can point to within our physical form that is that I. So whether we're looking at like our hands or our feet or our ears or our eyes or all of those various things that constitute our form, nothing is there that we can point to that is this I or this self. And then we look at feeling. Now, sometimes we have pleasant feelings, sometimes we have unpleasant feelings, sometimes we have neutral. So none of those can be pinpointed as being the I or the self. Again, they're variable and changing. And so too, when we examine our discernment or discrimination, the kind of factor that identifies various objects, we have many different sort of thoughts that arise within our discernment, like, oh, this is this, or this is good, and so forth. So none of those can be pointed to as being the self or the I. And then we turn to our consciousness. We also, within consciousness, have various divisions. We have the mental consciousness and visual, our ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and none of those as well are the I or the self. And then we look at the various sort of karmic formations. Again, when we have an intention, a mind that intends, and then we say give rise to anger, that creates these sorts of karmic imprints. And those too, we can't point to those virtues or non-virtues that we have accumulated as being this I or this self. So there arises then a kind of emptiness, a total emptiness of not being able to find such an I within that basis of designation. But they would say that there are these things that appear. And so for them, this kind of making distinctions between not existing from its own side and existence are not the kind of things that they are making. They really are negating all of these things completely due to this kind of process, or this is the way that they are thinking.
No, yeah. More than each other. Oh, the Taden did. Dying at the Chujukas or those on Sashi Chujukas. Gakwa meba, Kemeba, Chaba meba, Dameba said the Pabanyam Shakia. Tongbany cities uncle. Yawan Gagban, Droa, Wan, Sobakanga, Meba Sigioris on Gode. Oh, Tentamba Meba says, Loga Machan and Yore. Meba Sigioris. And Chidang Aranzo, Sheba, Migi Sheba, Naga Sheba, Ne Sheba, Che Sheba Tazukanga, Sema Maris, Chiton de Milo Maris, Yula. De Tona Shio Maris, Tanya Sema Maris, etc. Tanya Sedrups Maris. 타니베 tendoso kanga cheme tuba mare. Din donal sonduas. Mida nawa naya chamame, cheda luja yiga chamame. Kedi ombote da chayna pagbelam bi sula chishi chasdo. Ngarazu tonya da rigeta samyeta tozo kanga noryo kyang tongu yore. Oh, tisunze tisu chama mare se miloa yule miloa mare. Yungune nechuli yoba nashin. Zingi yo mare se. Yule miloa mare se. Mida nawa naya chamame chelo. Kedi ombote da chayna ngarazu tonju nashin. Dada dimba ene pagbe lamse loga komgoya mendo asungara. Pagbe lamji sula chishi chaase. Oti indi ngaranzo tongte reksum dezo yu tongte dezo kanga takche chide rag mares tongba reese. O tende sungu yordon. Tire ina ya tandamla chebe se o tezo kanga yo mare. Tanye do yoran jidengi tanye chide o rugdoa degdoa se tir kelen gura koran degabraga. Drowa da deva da chi tezo jiden tanye do yose. Tandamla chebe se ta kanga yo mare se. O da tinde sungu chidwa. Tita kas ngazu lapsarimba tinde bacha. Ta tim member te sharinda. O ale te shizocho.
So here, when it comes then to these things like forms and so forth, when it says that they, or like we have in the homage of Nagarjuna's root verses, where it talks about no cessation, no arising, no annihilation, no permanence, and so forth. This is the reality from the perspective of an Arya's meditative equipoise, realizing emptiness. So that is in that way non-deceptive. It doesn't take any of these things as its object. So but when it comes to the kind of object of our senses and our sense consciousnesses, they are not non-deceptive. They are not valid in this way because they don't actually apprehend the object as it exists. As it says in the sutras, that the eye, the ear, and nose consciousnesses are not valid knowledge. The tongue, body, and mental consciousnesses are also not valid knowledge. If these senses consciousnesses were valid knowledge, of what use to anyone would the Arya's path be? So if it were the case that things existed just as they appear, then what would be the purpose of cultivating the kind of Arya's path? If it were the case that our sense consciousnesses and so forth were totally unmistaken or non-deceptive with regard to what the objects as they appeared to them. But that isn't actually the case. When we try to search for such an object, we can't find it. So here again, we're presenting this one kind of particular view that according to them, they would say that when you search for the sort of the thing, you cannot ultimately find it. But according to worldly conventions, these things do exist. So here we'll continue with this kind of view.
Oh yeah, that and the did. And it the umaba lu shegi to pegi keba sama she the umabe lu shi cha shegi ora. The tando the uma tenju lu le tende res. Uma rangi be lu ya kaje keba cha go res ora ya. Uma bal ni ora, uma tenju ada rangi ba ni ora. The uma tenju lu chena su ten dambar me rangu ne me rangshi ki me le keba cha go mare. Su koran me che tende ta me tri me ro me tende kana digre sungora. Don't be kebar chago mare se. Don't dambar su me su yu tende chago mare. Umarangi be luchania kakja dilia don't damba se de chargo re sungora. Umarangi be luchana don't dambar su me se. Kebar chago re se. Tatia ya kebar chago re se don't dambar me se kebar chago se de don't dambar me rangune yo se keji shegyo mar sungyo marta. Don't dambar me se kebar chago re se. Ti kare se umar rangi bato zu yang tanya chedu che yige chujen tuna tadi mogo che shana chujen tuna wa se che she yore su chujen tuna dambar me de se de su de cheme tugu re se su da da chujen cheme tugu re se rangi ji ta se de keling yore tigi du yore Ranju Jita Yusa, Chema, Chujan Cheme Trunga, Chema Chingabzi Julu Yogores, Satan Dambar Medicine or Mado, Chida Medicine and Digmares, Ki Umaranjuba Lula Tindrese, or the Tagan Pegi Keba, Mangsha and Yama, Sungati Otis Sungura, or that did the Basha.
Mm. So here, when it comes to masters within Tibet, they're all trying to speak as Madhyamakas, as if they are proponents of the middle way. Now, when it comes to the basic kind of division between the two types of Madhyamakas widely recognized, the Prasangikas and the Svatantrikas, according to the Prasangikas, one doesn't need to add this qualifier ultimately when we are negating things, saying there's no form, no sound, no, and so forth. One doesn't need to put that qualifier of ultimately there is no form. And whereas for the Svatantrikas, they think that you do absolutely need to have this kind of qualifier. And this is because when they are making arguments, it's right in their name, they accept the use of what are called autonomous syllogisms, meaning that there needs to be sort of a commonly appearing object in order to say like form is not truly existent or so forth, whatever they're going to use in a syllogism. That kind of object needs to, conventionally speaking, have some kind of nature that a valid cognition can be valid with respect to in order that it be a valid cognition. So for the Svatantrikas, they would say that you absolutely need to put this qualifier ultimately when on the object of negation, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to have sort of valid argumentation.
Oh, yeah. The Jetsonga Baga, Tengsan Losu in the Richi Kanzi in the Sugua, the Takja ship to ship Trawa Cheche, or Tendriche, and then she songs thoughts, and thus Keba Komatu, Sonjuli Tos Mendra, or Tendris got the shaking. Oh, Tikarasana. Takanga Kasha Chidua, Kanga Kasha, the Tongba Chala, the Koyabu, the Inaya, Chambada, Chawa, Chanjugi Sem, Chimba, Chutumse, Tabji Chato Zulia, Sawati Kasra, Sem de Tosma, Chodu Duguare, Shira Chitum Maban, Chai, Kashel Tinyanga Yunguare. Chimba Chutum Sabanga, Maver, Jimbatime, Sem Jam Maver Sudakanga, Tawasi. Chunaraji Chedebe Sura Chagiora, or the Induzako Tabji Chade, those anima, Yamegi, Jandose, the Induza, Richi Kanzinane, Shundus Mambu, Sije, or Tita Sukura, Tandamla Chebesia, Sukura Kayamares, Su Yoko Rese, Su Rangwine Truba, Su Tandamba Truba, or Tika Kurmatu, Su Kayamares. Sukanani Traka Trigger Roga Tandakagura, Dinani Simjel Chimbatonga, that Sutum da Sevada, Chambada Tezukanga Kakuduas. That Tandam Chebese Kagiora, Kebakomato Sozicena. Oh, de Dekan and Medusi, take Kaxal, Tandam Keba Chagu Dose, Nevardo Chagurese. Dogabs Sonsal Manshala Charior, Kashal Machane, Some Trame. Namgi me sanje me kanga me sonsha sa yores. Tina tilia, dandamji keba keba chagores. Dona le chare, tian jikdenji tanye ji wanga yinji tandambane mayino sugdwa. Bumda tezu gavsa. Jikdenji tanye ji wanga yos. Ta tanye ji wanga yos de. Pa tanye ne chin dindiri si pa tagwa. Tesambi koran yotan de sogwar, tin jikba chigore. Ta yobe wando tan ene. Ti chashetuzu legachidu kora yoba wando tane. Jetsambi yoba le shago re songora. Ti anjikdenji tanyeji wangi yinji tandambani mayino su tandamji keba chado wa songora. Shiro nyimbi kapsu ne chu tamji rangshinji tongbar namba yangda bachi stawa songudwa. Rangshinji tongbar namba yangda bachi stawa. Eni wane su me trametu. Rere liya rangshinji me rangshin me sedane tabi yomara. Chotambi Ranshinji Domba number Yanda watches towers, and a so may dramatic Kanga Mesora. The Anjik Dengi Tanya Yongi turned down by the Mayanos, and a session dog of Kanga Messi, 남기 매스 송샤기와라. 저 가져라 전담기 개발 자고레스. 수고라 까야 말에 각자 문제 로스 거래 송거래. 여기 공망 아주 세준의 시즌에 각자 문제 로스 고구면 도와. 고라 가야래대 도와. 다단다 각자 문제 거래서야 돼. 수고라는데 최고라 가야 말에 때려 로스 각자 문제인데 로스 거래서. 대가래서는 더담바 줘봐. 담바 줘봐. 랑원에 줘봐. 랑신지 줘봐. 랑와도 줘봐. 어디 매매스 강갈 자고래 송거라. 어디에 공 장기어는 더 지지해서 근데 단다 로면 파발라게 시계배 가서 네가 라와 매바데 때나 다네 여마에 송여래. 네가 라와 매바데 때나 다네 여마 다메 세데. 쇼탐제 다메 세도 엄마 텐주 루체나. 쇼탐제 다메 세 다데 가르스네. 네가 라와 매바데스. 간사이네 한다 간사 마인 배추이네 한다 간가 라와도 주바요 마레 송거래. 코랑원에 추트네 현달을 떼어진 델네 로봇 드림거죠. 코랑원에 가랑가랑가 대유세선도 추여버치어라. 이거 라와메 받았어. 때나 다네 요마에서 대선자 될 다음에 봤어 그래서 그래. 뒤에 가도는 제바들이야. 로벤 다와 잡아 제바 잡네. 될 다지 자와네세. 디 다메세 다들다 문진치가 왔다. 지다 강사 예세티 말다 다메세 다데. 달라 다지 자와네 가싱어보 남제 샬라 라마레베 모랑 신데 소야레. 데메바네 다메바오스. 가싱어보 남제 샬라 라마레베 모랑 신데스. 어제인데 시계변 제베캅스 도서 강가 찍바인 소래. 가서래. 랑원에 줘봐, 랑와도 줘봐, 랑신게 줘봐. 라샬 담바 줘봐. 어떠서 강가 찍바인스. 민기 남라서 그래. 시계변 제베캅스 나오다바키. 어제인데 다메세 다데 가르스나 샬라 라마레베 모랑신 디메바들 다메바스 그랬어. 샬라 라마레바세 모데 가르스 테 종가바 디 람피심나를 송도와 담마도 제서 어디 디질랍산 되면 샬라 라마레베 모랑신 세데 샬라 라마레베 모랑신 세데 가르스나 지덴베 타니베 셰바쇼라 디디레스 바 땅겐게 셰바쇼라 타년 도벨로쇼라 타니베 유젠게 로텔이야 디수렌 디타렌 디메렌 디라레세 타년 동겐게 유젠게 로쇼라 오텔이 하신해서 그래서 디왕게 샤바 마이바 타년 도벨로왕게 샤바 마이바 코란 장장군에 추여바텔이야 아니 랑군에 여바스 당니게 여바 소승군에 추여바스 디고요라 디인도 가자를 던담 예막해봐 자고 그래서 콩 도사돼서 루지간지 전에 딘딘데 손도와 디손자세 콩 도사줘라 디 로면 바보라긴 디그 라완 메바데 때나 다니 여마에 시도와 딘 제반 다와 잡아게 리셰캡도 티란 cap도와 근데 더나래야 라완 메바세 디고 마용 그랬다 단다 라완 여메시 가서 생계자야야서 따월린 그래 어디지 그 나타만 로체서 아
Yeah.
각자 문제 넣어서 고야 되려다 다 뜻이에요 그랬단다 생각
So here, when it comes to then Tsongkhapa in his Lamrim Chenmo, he identifies kind of the kind of ways in which other scholars have gone astray and the sort of sources that lead them to make particular kind of decisions. So here there is the sort of danger in when some understand emptiness, they think that it's like negating everything. And so therefore, there is this danger that the kind of side of conduct will decline, that they'll think, oh, there's no karma, there's no virtue and non-virtue, there's no sort of need to practice generosity or ethics or any of those other sides of the path, no need to cultivate love and compassion, because there's just no, they don't actually exist. And so here it comes then when identifying the kind of object of negation, and there are differences that come according to again the prasangikas versus the svatantrikas. The svatantrikas would say that that when it comes to phenomena, we are negating some kind of, again, they say that one needs to apply this kind of qualifier of ultimately. So things, they would say, exist due to the power of conventions, but not ultimately. They don't ultimately exist in that way. So the kind of understanding that comes from the Svatantrikas is that they don't want to negate the thing itself. Again, they're worried about this idea of there being a sort of nihilistic extreme of when you negate all of these things, someone sort of falling into that kind of nihilistic thinking of nothing exists whatsoever. And so they, not wanting to negate the thing itself, they would say that, well, it's the sort of ultimate existence of that thing, which is something sort of to the side or apart from the thing itself that is being negated. So this is the kind of, when it comes to identifying the actual object of refutation or the object of negation for and again, Tsongkhapa in the Lamrim Chenmo looks at the sort of sources and how it is that the Svatantrikas come to think in this way, particularly regarding the need to apply that qualifier ultimately, versus the Prasangika kind of view, which is clearly identified, tracing back to Aryadeva's 400 verses, where the sort of thing that is being negated is not the thing itself, but it says all of these things have no autonomous nature, therefore they have no self. So and this is what is being negated according to the Prasangika. The self and the selflessness is some sort of autonomous nature, something that, as Chandrakirti explains in his commentary to this stanza of the 400 verses, that this indicates that anything that exists by its own nature, inherently, independently, without depending on others. This, again, is referring to the kind of nature of something that is what is the object of negation here, and the object of refutation, some sort of existence, objective existence, independent existence, and without depending on others, is not just referring to sort of causes and conditions, but also that conventional mind that designates that thing as such. So for the Prasangikas, it's like the object itself is not negated, but rather some kind of nature of it that exists from its own side, exists in a way that does not depend upon others, including that kind of sort of terminology and thought that designates things as existing as such. So that kind of autonomous nature, that inherent nature, that ultimate nature is the thing that is negated by the Prasangikas, whereas for the Svatantrikas, their idea of what is being negated ends up being something sort of apart from, aside from that object itself.
Oh, that day, but they in the Karsura. Now, my tenure, Lulia, while she's on Gabata, what is the Sonjuna Shichana? Then Tambar Truba, Tambar Truba, Rangwene Truba, Rangshinji Truba, Rawando Truba, Shana Ram Malabangos, or Tezukanga, Tandachi Bada. Tenure, Lulia. Oh, Umarangi Lucia Veneco, Rangwene Truba, Rangshinji Truba, yes. Tandamba Truba, Tamba Truba, Mass, Kabachidua. Marangi Bada, Tenjuali, and Kabayore. Those Chibamare. Oh, they do Kasura. Oh, Tandamba, the round, I did this one, Rawando Truba Mavase. Oh, they do Castle, Tandamji Kaba, you couldn't Kaya Mare, Telia Loso, Kabachago, the Esse. Oh, this was one, Timbacha. That the Kaba Majana and Indigo Marese, and the Kabachago were loaned and the Pabolada, and then the hot Trabata, one young Gomulu do Shonle Mambuyore. Oh, young teacher. Pangajin the man, 오래 다 가려서 오래 근데 되지 내내 보자 엄마 tenju에 로리야 지다고 남바 참마게 딱지 라와전지 다음에 봐서 지시도 다음에라고 지 랑게트베 제기 다음에 봐서 지시도 뒤 남배 좀더 뭐 강강냠도 대처하게 시그래 tel tumuwe kansa dame sigre. Ta tenjuwa chane kansa dame da chogi dame nide kakcha le chara yo mare. Chibare tanda tate she saswa tanye ji wanga shakba mayimba yu kurangu ne su chuba telya rangu ne chuba rangshin chuba tanda chuba sigardo. O ti de chodan kansa yewe namni sonse ti tale ya rosare. Shujengi ko yewe kone. Shujen kansa rawa tangi to maduba kansa ka tame. Shujen su ta riksa soba rawa tangi to maduba dala chuji tame sigri mato. Chuji tame da kansa ka tame la kakcha le chara yo mare. Uma ba rangi ba da semjan ba to zuyne kansa ka tame da chuji tame kakcha le chara yo ra. tenjuwe lule kaksala chara yo mare. Chujengi chane kansa tame da chuji tame. Chu tamche tame ba se taati o tirita. Chu tamche tame ba se de rangwe dangi du chube. Rangwe dangi du chube rangi ngo me ba se ure. Dangi se taa se de kansa le koye yore kansa mayimbe chole ya rangi dangi se chi koye dowa. O tinte rangwe dangi du maduba. Rāngwē tāngi tu mātū bātala tāme bāsi. Tī chē pumbā rāngwē tāngi tu mātū bātala chē ki tāme. Rā pumbā tāme. Pumbā rāngwē tāngi tu mē bātsa sīvara. Tēnā shī kānsā rāngwē tāngi tu mē bātala kānsā tāme sī. Tī chē chēngi kune yawa mātū kāksā la chārā yawa māri. Tēngi wē tūma māyīmbē tāme tēliyā. Tā chidān tūma wāyā tūpta shendā shēba nāshī. Kansa tamishtuwa te ragbara chire rudo. O te chish. Runa.
So, according to the Prasangikas, they would say that ultimate establishment or ultimate existence and true existence, objective existence or existence from the side of the object and inherent existence are all synonymous. And those are all what is to be negated. Whereas for the Svatantrikas, they would distinguish inherent existence and existence from the side of the object as being things that do actually exist, whereas they again apply that qualifier ultimately, and they say that ultimate or true existence is what is to be negated, but not this kind of inherent existence and not existence from its own side. So again, citing the kind of identification of the object of negation for the Prasangikas, again, all these things have no autonomous nature, therefore they have no self. So the Prasangikas are identifying this kind of autonomous nature or this ability to exist without depending upon anything else, something existing from its own side as being the kind of object of negation. So to back up, when it comes to all Buddhist tenet schools, except that there is no sort of permanent, autonomous, singular self that is something asserted by kind of non-Buddhist schools, they would say that all of those would say that all Buddhists would say that that does not exist. And then there are those, the sort of common understanding of the selflessness of the person's not being a self-sufficient, substantially existent entity. But according to the Prasangikas, that's a more coarse kind of understanding of selflessness. That is not, or selflessness of the person. That's not the most kind of subtle understanding of selflessness of the person. For them, they don't divide this sort of, there's no difference of subtlety between the selflessness of the person and the selflessness of phenomena, but rather they divide based upon the subject that is being analyzed. That this sort of nature or self, again, usually we apply this term self to the person, but the self of phenomena is any kind of like that autonomous existence, not dependent upon anything else. And so for the Prasangikas, there's no difference in terms of the subtlety between the object of negation negated in the selflessness of phenomena and the selflessness of the person, but rather they're distinguished based upon what object one is negating. So all phenomena are selfless and they lack this kind of autonomous own nature. So when it comes to our aggregates lacking that kind of autonomous nature, that is the selflessness of the aggregates or selflessness of phenomena. And the persons not having that kind of autonomous nature is the selflessness of the person. So the kind of selflessness that is the person's lack of a substantial self-sufficient kind of existence, that's a common selflessness to all selflessness of the person, to all Buddhist schools, but the Prasangikas would consider that a more coarse form of selflessness.
Oh yeah. That teaches them now. Oh, that and then I do decay soda. Share to the woman and sharing on the Salujambe, the Java Kamala Shilin Javatigi, Lingju the share, what and then I do the share your mara. Gone to us, Caso Chita, Lingjunal share to the Kangan, the Zuna to chot, doing it to Tishar Mazi, not the Rawach and Shivji take your mardo. Setting in and the Zukan doesn't do the coach and share USA, Gumulu do that to Zukanga, man didn't dress on shas, cheaper, Shiriwa, and it's personality, Wally Lingju Koran Sherwa. Oh, yeah, what did you lamna? Lingju the shaking a share myself, got shaking.
So then we will turn to the sort of the preface or the sort of opening homage and verses of intention. So because these sorts of sources don't necessarily come up in this commentary by Kamala Shila that and my commentary here is translated, this is something that I wanted to give as a little bit of background, but then we'll go into the actual text itself. But giving this sort of sources from Nagarjuna and so forth will hopefully help us to understand as we go through.
Oh yeah, that's it. The Karasong does not. Oh, the Tanda Chidanko Kajala Tondam di Keba Majane Kawayena, and the Tongbani da Tabgicha Chimba Chudin Seva Chamba Niji Chanjuki Semla Sova, or Tezuliane, Nishi, Dromboche, Ishi, Nintawan, Ishi Tone, Nebanyan, and Bezu Cheshorwa, or Tezu Young Kabuchi Grace Songora, Delian de Long de Tangora, Kasha, Gomolo Dugi, Ripetu Chubecos, Joan de Kyokun. Sonamishi Toto, the Sonamishi Lechong, Tambakuni Tober Shows and Gistua. Sakewandi Kyoka, Sonamishi Toto, the Sonamishi Lechong, Tambakuni Tober Shows. Oh, take us carrying Gursanas. Kewandi Kyoka, Sonamishi Toto, So Sayateli Arwa, Chanju Samba Nada, to Samaga, So Sayatelia. Niora, Sonami Tota, and Shiji Tosigdo. Kiwandi give Sunamishi Sotos. Take a resina. Sunamji Sote, so Suguduchi, Julindu Yore. Sanjay Chumden de Kusu Yorwa, Sansan Busumjusan, the Pijasambu Chachuta, or Tindren Dembechu, Sujiku, Shendunjiku Sigra. Shenlia was a chusung Kansa de Tatunda. Sanki and Shella Jaga Jay Yubachani Chusung Kansa Shidua. O tin ruji judelia, sonam ji so sigore. Sensan da peche da te tama kusun ruji kyu. Ni ne person soba, lu person soba, longi person soba, dagbe shingam, sanje shingam, trube yorno. Tezo kangan ruji judela, sonam ji so sigore. Tezo li chimba da, sujim da, seba da, o ni mabu, kyuso mabu yungurdo. Chamba nyingji chanju ki semla soba tezo yungura. Ni shiji so sena. Medabada, Tungewada, Tombada, Damiba, Shirabji Chadel, Ishiji Sosigora. 시럽지 차들래 시기서 동반이 또배 시럽라서 봐. 시제 내주 지마치신 시배 시럽들라 이 시기서서 그래. 뒤 양내 양도 장발을 때네 내 산제 좀 된되게 이 가서 추구토고라. 추구도 수구스니요라. 수구스도자 구수 강사들 제라와. 추구스도 대교제 랑도르제 내 말루바 캠베 캠바테다. 아니 녀모보다 실제 집에 말루바 빵배 빵반이 되시거라. 된다. 미시베 몽바 빵 녀모빵. 아니 실제 탐제 시베 교대가르스는 이시들 시럽대. 시럽되게 제바체제네 유 내주신 게 신게체 녀모 빵게 빵게 교대 디레션데 레메도 사마니아 림비림비 녀모다 미시베 몽바티 강가빵. 아니 실제 랑도르기네 지마치신 내주 지마치신데 시행고요라. 어때인데 산제가 투교지 슈 탐제 캠베 랑도르기네 캠베 남게테다 아니 트마세베 세바스네 그래. 점이 말루바 빵바 빵바시도와 지들의 시추고서 지들의 원이고서는 그래. 원이고 동반이 시추죠 뒤게 시하고 막 된다 그래. 어때인데 이 시기 소되게 그 교환이 교고 수남이시 소저도 수남이시 내죠 담바꾼이 토바쇼스도 담바꾼이서도 추구 담바다 수구 담바시고 그래. 된다 수구되다 추구되래. 자 추구 톱직이 주소데 이 시기 소되래. 수구 톱직 주소데 수남지 소되래. 야 수남지 소라야 공부 여행도 제발할 때네 산계의 수구 세상 무슨 주세 부재산부 교주된 데바 송야야라 주주된 데바 파치송 되적은 제지에 어디 두고와라. 아니 이 시기 소되게 탐제 캠바다 랑이 껴고서 연대 군데 랑도기네 탐제 캠바데 시럽 장장장장하는 메시베 몽바세게 세게 껴세게 제도고라. 이 시기 소되 추구도지 교대래. 어디에인데 니가리아 네바 장구를 송거라. 개바 망볼이야 소남다 이시기 솔로고라. 니 짐바다 주름서 서바고 삼대고 대절에 때네 군주배차 람 군주배차에 람게를 마시거든. 어디다 단단바 동반이 공배 람지샤 니가리아 네바니에서 네바니에서 고거로 왔어. 니신ning 탁반에 니네 군주배 근데 랑도르게 쳐 수군도치기 쳐도 내내는 수군도고요삼 닝탁반에 이신이 받지 고거라. 군주배 쳐리 이신이 받고 하래. 전담배 쳐리야 아니 전담바 동반이 공발할 때네 아니 메시베 몽발 소바세네 람지를 받을래 이신이 받고 하래. 이 영화를야 아니 군주배 쳐 짐바 쳐를 서바 수굴에 서바때서 간가 가샤나 때 영토 말했어. ning 탁반에 진짜 개발망부 깔래 개발로야게 삼리도 용토고 말했어. 뒤엔데 각설에 개발 자고를 마도 탑지 차들이야 견자 연구를 해서 탑지 차를 이진ning 탁반에 군주부 차들에 니바도 연구 말했어. 어때 송구도 되지 좋나 망도져서.
So here, if we misidentify the kind of object of negation, if we over negate such that we kind of undermine our belief in the validity of the method side of the path, this is quite dangerous. So again, as Nagarjuna has said in his 60 stanzas on reasoning, he makes this sort of a prayer that through this virtue may all sentient beings accumulate the collections of merit and wisdom, and attain the two holy bodies that arise from merit and wisdom. So here, again, thinking about the state of Buddhahood and what that state actually is, it's encompassed in the two, or variously listed, bodies of a Buddha. And so the primary cause of the form body, the physical form body of a Buddha that possesses the 32 major marks and 80 minor signs and so forth, this is due to the accumulation accumulation of merit. So the kind of resulting body of a Buddha, that form body that can actually encounter disciples and teach them and so forth, as well as the kind of excellent marks of that body, the excellent abode that a Buddha lives in, a Buddha's realm, the sort of retinue that surround him and so forth. This comes about due to our collection of merit, all of those practices of generosity and ethics and so forth, patience and love and compassion. It is only through those that we are able to attain this form body of a Buddha. And then there is the accumulation of wisdom, the side of wisdom, by developing that kind of knowledge of knowing things as they are. One is able to attain this variously translated the Dharma body or the truth body. It's really knowing, it's referring to that kind of omniscient knowledge, that knowledge without any sort of mistake or error, what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned. And this encompasses the realizations of a Buddha as well as their abandonments, all of the kind of faults that have been exhausted, as well as all of the kind of omniscient wisdom that is able to realize all phenomenon exactly as they are. And we don't need to get into the way that this knows, the omniscient wisdom knows all phenomena at this time. But so the holy form body is something that we accumulate, that we accomplish due to accumulating merit over a long period of time. We have to engage in all of these kinds of practices in order to attain such a form body that has all of those marks and signs and the various qualities, 60 qualities of speech and so forth. And we need to develop the kind of causes for the wisdom body by cultivating wisdom over a long period of time, by training our logic and our wisdom, developing that such that we are able to attain that eventual state of the truth body or the Dharma body of a Buddha. And so we definitely need both of these. However, if someone has an understanding of emptiness that undermines the kind of path side, the method side, those conventional stages, that's going to be very problematic, because in order to really strive after this kind of result, we need a confidence, a kind of from the depths of our heart confidence in both of these, in the sort of conventional paths and stages that lead to the form body of the Buddha, that accumulation of merit, as well as the kind of ultimate side, that realization of wisdom, and that will lead to the truth body or the Dharma body of a Buddha. And so we need this kind of certainty that is really deeply grounded kind of certainty. And if we undermine or negate conventional phenomena, then how can we possibly be wanting to pursue such a result?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that don't that could do so. Kunzube, the Kunde and Dilatene, and Debundi and Dejuata, don't ambar, Rangshin Madu, Matuja, the tension Revan Joalea, Kundilaten and Debundi and Dejuata, or Tinigalia, Nevan Rombachukudua, Nishin Yabachukudua. Oh, this don't that dear. Chetamja Rangwin and Mare Rangshin met Tantambar Manaya, and Java Chenube, Kunde Tendi. Rangshinji mebala chawa chenebe tendriji namsha de tegre samne telia ngishinye ba chiko yora chitawa da chinyi ba lamji tuju chitawa to ba da chinyi ba to ba lamji tuju niga le ngishinye ba chiko ese o ti ngishinye ba chimena ane lam tapshini yama de lo ba de yong ma ese yung butin de kale ke de yong ma no o teta buta ngishi tembo chinye ba ya ane ngishi tembo chinye ne lamla ya lo bala shi kapsu tawatana bebala rale grese tawatana bebala na che tawatana bedu kade tali pe gurasana o tene ora atechilamna tawatana bebala rale grese to dish ya kade lapsare.
So again, there are some that want to apply this kind of a qualifier of ultimately in order that one doesn't sort of undermine or negate those conventionalities. So here one needs to have both a kind of certainty in the conventional, in cause and effect, that a certain cause will lead to a certain result, as well as this kind of understanding that things lack true existence or existence from their own side, lack inherent existence. We need to have strong certainty in both of these varieties in order to pursue this kind of a path. We need to have a strong kind of certainty in the phenomenal side and the varieties, the way that there are the varieties of phenomena, as well as their mode, the way in which they exist. So one can't have the combined path of method and wisdom if you really don't have strong certainty in both of those sides, have strong kind of confidence. And the way that we develop a confidence in both of these is dependent upon how we sort of determine the view, how we come to an understanding based upon our analysis of the path.
우야 다던다 쉐 남루아 랑도르게 쉐 가리네티 랑윈에 주바 던담바 주베 똥신도야 아니 똥바니엘이야 똥 랑윈에 주베 똥신도야 자지 탐제 로완델이야 녜시니고 레세 랑윈에 주베 똥발이야 자지 롱구메나 네 람데 콤발레 때네 자와티 첸 제부디 토발라 소발라 이시니 토고 마르도 진두 가서라 람게 군주베 쇼다 균제다 테줄이야 랑신지 주베 똥바 이나야 자지 네발이야 녜시니 바치 거레세 제 자신 녜시니 바치 고디 따와 따나 베트네 덴데 마추 바치 거레스 단다 따와 따나 베트네 너르소나네 람곰디 너도르다 네 시타와 따나 파바카서 마추 바치 거레스 시타와 따나 파바카서 카르타나 파고르스나 담담버 메세 냐모다 콘도다 나제다 당질라 소바 시베치도 동바 공부여라 타이네 동바지 이나야 야 잠바다 저와다 닝지다 장주 셈다 침바 추르 서발라 소바 대서 고여나 랑원에 동바 이나야 땡진 레버 중앙 섬도 자지 탐주 네버레섬 디니니들은 게신이고레세 디 오마바 오마텐유와다 오마바마도 ng마도 저건 개와통 거라 랑원에 동 랑신지 동 라오에 동 나네 저도 샤토 말을 삼겨라 아주 참 남들 값을 용구도 와 ng마원다 바시에데 간실 ng외고 랑신지 라랑 올라네 쳤어 ng보 참마 탐제 랑신지 라랑 그 올라네 그래서 아니 시한다 만데바 라랑 그 팀무 많이 배운 거를 샤토 그래서 랑신지 주면은 아니 때 샤토 말을 쓰고라 간실 ng외고 랑신지 라랑 올라네 쳤어 등에시한 영어들은 노발을 템퍼처에서 어디인데고 랑신지 주발이야 매는 되게 맞대도 랑신지 주바 가서래 랑신지 주베 똥발이야 자지 샤토고요 말은 왜 마토서게 치르바다 인데야 너데바다 샘장바다 라서바 어디서 참아탐제게 샤토고요 말도 어디인데 시타와 짠을 빼백값소 저 탐제 랑신지 주베 똥바 이나야 랑윈에 주베 똥발이야 아니 두단 제비 남샤 디두 팬에 제발서 어디 남샤 텔링에바니 바시고레스 데데 뭐보마라서 바테서 티니 게와토네 네바니 토고요만 디 곰볼로두게 티무 많이 바송베 람제레스 타티 원에 곰볼로두 숑카시 마 선지도 장기바 어디시구나 엔데로 Yeah.
So here, when it comes to whatever sort of dharma or phenomena, like a point that we are to take up into practice and so forth, one needs to come to this kind of certainty that even though all phenomena lack inherent existence or existence from their own side, all actions and agents, all is suitable within that. We can still have functionality, even though all phenomena are lacking in that kind of inherent existence. And so this is really critical at the time when one is determining the view or determining what is the meaning of emptiness, that one do so in an unmistaken kind of a way. If you are errant in what you have determined to be the understanding of emptiness, then when you go to meditate, you will definitely go astray. And so here, recognizing that even within there not being any kind of ultimate existence or inherent existence, in order to pacify our afflictive emotions and so forth, we need to, for example, cultivate love and compassion and so forth. All of those are able to function or work within that lack of inherent existence. existence. So there are those, for example, realists, whose view is encapsulated in a verse from Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika, where he explains that all phenomena sort of exist in their own right. They have their own nature, and it is in that way that they are able to function, he would assert. So realists, whether that's a mind-only school or the Sutra school or the Vaibhashikas, they are unable to posit functionality or actions and agents within the context of a lack of inherent existence. So for the realists, the sort of view that they have come to is going to lead them astray in this way. But when, according to the Prasangikas, you come to the correct understanding, one sees that even within that state of lacking any kind of inherent existence, we can talk about suffering and happiness, benefit and harm, and those things are able to function within the context of a lack of inherent existence. And so this is really critical to have this kind of understanding, and we will get into some quotations then from Nagarjuna and so forth that establish this kind of view.
Oh yeah. 다 원고 뭐도 저거 땡겨와 통는 조신 그 말을 아니 시럽 신도 탈라 subject 자체에 니 시럽던 덴베 우마 tenju에 개버터 저거 대존 개와면 뭐 샤신 거 어디서 그거라 템바니 쪽에 탑락해베 dontambe tempa tongbanyi joksuda tenjin debaran junga samdu chachi runga kunzubji temban joksu tele kebare eso uma ba kebatezo kebese ro tenjin debaran junga da rangune tongba rangshingi tongbanyi lan gewe cha gewe 중세 jameba kunzugo totogu arese te togwala tene sanje chumdendeji tenjin debaran junga rese rangune tongba re song shangenge 아니 공부 친지 말로 봐대 아니 니네 그 동반 얘기 되는데 랑원에 동배 되는데 자와집에 동반 말에서 땡진 레버리 줘야 되레서 어떤데 지금 매바 양답을 거는 로버 샬 샤바 치토고 어레서 그와 근데 다들 그 가서래 지금 넘버다 엄마 tenju 왔다 저거 아니 가르쳐 두고 그러잖아 신된 다세 로저단 담바 다세 라신기 동배터네 로 땡진 레버 주에 되는지세 뭐 매배 동바 말에세 어디 조번 제버레세 그래 뭐 매배 때 말에세 땡진 레버 주에 되는지 근데 저와 집에 네배 동배 뭐 매배 때는 많이 넣었어 어디 시에께서 통보게 고볼루둘라 소바다 나와다고라 소바죠 야네 양도 저버 제샤 송거래 어디시 교난 딘네 마숑 카셰 장거와 근데 송샤야
So here, when it comes to the realists, they are unable to posit there being a sort of functionality within there being a lack of inherent existence. So for them, emptiness and dependent origination are contradictory. To say that things are empty of some kind of inherent existence means that they would not be able to function as cause and effect and so forth. But the distinguishing kind of feature of the Madhyamakas is that there's no kind of contradiction between things being dependently originated and empty of any kind of inherent existence. That's actually, it is the case that phenomena being empty does not mean that they like don't exist at all, but rather it is that they are dependently originated. And so here, when it comes to, again, the realists are unable to understand or to be able to posit these two. For them, emptiness means that nothing would be able to function. There would be no sort of ability for there to be cause and effect. Whereas for the Prasangikas or the Madhyamakas, and again, this is proclaimed again and again by Nagarjuna and other masters, is that these are completely in harmony. A lack of inherent existence and dependent origination are actually harmonious in this way.
Oh yeah. Don't you my own do to John Jumeta? Oh yeah. Now we're more to do some good. Shoot them there, Ranshinji to be Tombayena, and then Namsha Tamje Kirange, 동해 덴바도 코아코에 렘바다 코알은 도베 렘발로 소바 남샤도 강에 제토고 말에서 저바주고 와래 땡 자바시르 갑송고도와 개된 데다 꾸똥나 중앙매진 지관매 박배 덴바시부네 켤레매가 타완조스 개된 데사마 탐제 뭐뭐 데사마 탐제 랑군에 주베 똥바이나 개된 뭐다 가서 개된 데다 꾸똥나 지관매지 중앙매서라 개된 데다 꾸똥나 요도와 개된 데다 꾸똥나 중앙매진 지관매서 뭐뭐 랑신지 랑군에 주베 깨와대 연구 말에 아니 지과대 연구 말에 반자빠에 연구 말에 년복 규리 깨도 연구 말에서 개된 데다 꾸똥나 중앙매진 지관매 박배 템바 15남 켤라 타와 켤라 매버 타와 주스 केरा भगवत देंबाशी शेख दोस नाम बचो रवा भगवत देंबाशी खोआ खोरे दा खोआ दोबे चीनी दि कोर दा ओ तेजो गांग थेग मारे से खोआ खोए जुदान जेबि नाम शा शातु मारे खोआ len दोबे जुदान जेबि नाम शा शातु मारे से ओ केदेन देदा को जना जोआ मेजी भगवत देंबाशी केला में बतावा जो शेदा रवा तेसम के केरा राशिन के टुबा काग दोस उमा बाखरन गोमलो डोला सोगा राशिन के टुबा काग दोस राशिन के टुबा का तो मारे राशिन के टुबा काया दे खाने शेने का हो दोस छिक बा के जे शेने का हो दोस केरा के छिकोरा राशिन के मैसे के दोस छिकोरा राशिन के मैना चावा जे तो मारे रांगने मैना ने को चावा जे करे से रांग ngoy मैना कोरा ngoy को ने सु मैना को चावा जे तो मारे से 저기 책 랑신지 두바면은 책들 가르까토고 까토고 말해서 거라 근데 뭐 마와서 저거도와 템바시 매바 타와라 소바 치셔와 전에 이 전도 그 농장도와 개정거부 탐지지 랑신군을 위해면은 저기 책장 랑신매 랑신 도버미니 소세 랑신 도토고 말해서 랑신 도지데 칸에 깨지 셰네 치기권은 도하고로와 치고나 랑신기 매나 치고나 동바래서 자와제 토고 말해서 어떤데 수수고도와 되지람나 야
So here, then kind of presenting the sort of wrong views that can arise. It says here, quoting from Nagarjuna first, that if all these things are empty, there can be no arising and no destruction. According to you, it must follow that the Four Noble Truths do not exist. So here, again, this kind of wrong understanding believes that, well, if you say that all things are empty of some kind of inherent existence, then that means that there can be no production whatsoever, no sort of arising or ceasing, no abandonment or cessation of our sufferings, no cultivating paths, and so forth. And so if it is the case that all these things are empty of some kind of inherent existence, then what about these Four Noble Truths? None of the Four Noble Truths would be tenable. It would not be possible to posit any of those. So again, this is the kind of wrong understanding that sees a lack of inherent existence and kind of functionality or efficacy as being in contradiction. So this continues with the kind of sort of objection raised by an opponent, as it is Nagarjuna gives the position of this kind of person in his refutation of objections, where he says, if all things in every case do not inherently exist, then even your words do not inherently exist, and so cannot refute inherent nature. So here, the next sort of fault that is lobbed at the Prasangikas is that, well, if you are refuting inherent existence or inherent nature, then if your words, even your words, don't inherently exist, how can they possibly have efficacy in negating that kind of inherent nature? What can they refute? What can they do? Because they don't have any sort of inherent existence. And again, for them to have inherent existence is to be able to function. So the main sort of objections that are raised by this opponent are first that there would be no Four Noble Truths. If you negate inherent existence, then it must follow that the Four Noble Truths don't exist. And then the second is that, well, if you say that everything lacks inherent existence, then even your words can't possibly have efficacy to negate inherent existence.
Oh yeah. 다들 봐 랭자도 엄마 봐 랭자도 되네 랑신 매번나 이나야 고들 남샤 탐제 샤초바데 엄마베 개주레서 계란도 샤토고요 말에서 견도 타와는 요안에 똥을 대봐 많이 됐어 계란 주교 다야 돼가 똥번이 라운에 주베 똥번이 마올래 견도 주고 말에서 견에 똥이 봉지와 간등을 met에서 계란을 견도 주고 그래서 라운에 똥바 많이나 랑신지 주바이나 랑신지 주바이나 샹을 때문에도 주고를 때려야 교단 제비 야와샤토고 말했어. 괜히 동이 본지가 간등하려 매게다. 간을 동반이로와 tel라 탐제 롱한 유르스. 간을 랑원의 동바래 땡진 레버를 주에고네 랑경 오토 그랬으나 샹게 tel야 남사 간거 되그래. 그 랑원도 주바 랑신지 주바 랑경 오토 주바지 요 말해. 차시 망보질라 땡진 렐네 ane ko dhuguyore. Tende chashe dedaga chawa chebala tene ko chawa cheba shakuru mato. Koran chikbu rangune truba chige chawa chebala soba tedu tega mares. Sa uma balya kyonti tega mares. Rangshinji truba maala ya chundrela soba jwa metube kyonti ungurese. Uma balya tende kyonti mares yudwa. Tene kare. Kyonti odere. 똥 가죠. 간라 똥반이를 teletaja. 간라 똥이를 telechia 미롱 오시라. 시마와에 대해서. 오야 티르티인데 곰볼로 두게 다티 송겨도 랑원에 주베 똥바텔이야. 자시 탐제 샤쇼바든 곰볼로 두게 공부를해서. 요 곰볼로 두지 세번에 주단께 대단 될때네 Debun deda de jong Judan can deleteta didn't deletane debu de gas Jawadan gagbala sogba namsha tamje rungurese tension debar jonala tene tension debar jonala tene anikasro ume lamche kugurese Tisungudoya techilam alemando cheso.
So here, in response to this kind of realist attack, Nagarjuna responds again from his fundamental treatise or root verses on wisdom by saying, well, it doesn't actually, that fault wouldn't come to us, as it was said before. If all these things are empty, they said, there can be no arising and destruction. According to you, it must follow that the Four Noble Truths do not exist. So turning that around, Nagarjuna replies by saying that, well, if it were the case that all these things are not empty, then there can be no arising and destruction. If it is the case that things are autonomous or non-dependent, non-contingent, then none of this, no action and agent, no arising and destruction would be suitable or would be possible at all. And so therefore things are not empty. Then we could not posit the Four Noble Truths. So here it is all possible within the context of dependent origination. So when it comes to the kind of fault incurred here, the Madhyamakas will not incur this sort of fault. All is able to be posited that this can arise in dependence upon this cause and this condition because they are empty of some kind of intrinsic existence. If they were not empty of that kind of intrinsic existence, then there could be no arising and destruction. There could be no way to posit actions and agents and so forth. So it is only because of the fact that things are empty that one can posit them as having arising and destruction and so forth. And so here it will come below, but wherever emptiness is suitable, everything is suitable. It is suitable because they are empty of that kind of inherent existence. So it is in this way that Tsongkhapa is encouraging entering into an understanding of emptiness through or by way of an understanding of dependent origination.
Oh yeah. Oh that and Ranshin Giton Jubera. Jundi and Dilatene, Jebundi Kewada, Jundi and Dilatene and Jebudin Gagbase, Tenjin Deber Joe, or Chulatene, and the Rangone Jube Tongbada, Umelam Choco with Esse, the the Ravjinish Tashibenale, and Gomuludu Songudoa, or take a rest, the Kacham Chigde. Tenjin Deber Joa got any Tongban to share. Rangwen tenjin debre judan ke mangbo chige chogbala tenjin relne koke goyora Tikiti Koran Oyo Sotayake Yomardo. Chiruba does in there ranking Oyo to Gurese. Rebu Koran Tambu Kudus, you and Tenets of Madhyamaka. Dali was a Koran to Madhyamaka. Or the Indicasere. Tende Yomare, Kujik and got sauce on her. Jen sauce on Yelenche, Lenji get sauce on her. And then you would have been a Yamajaranji Koran, Yake, where mother Koran couldn't suit to Yomara. Rangune Sutra Yomara. Tenzi never do a unit over Teneco Luburto, Jama Yongu Mataji, or to Rangune Yomardo. So the Tenzi never Joa Cantine Tomba Nidu shares. The Rangune Tomba race Tisungu Arese. Tenzi never Joa Tene Tomba Nisha. Tana Mare Vesana. Tenzi never Joa and Rangune Tomba and the Tamare Vese. Oh, Mel Mari Yorese. Never showers. Tenetene Dagba de Teni Ume Laminos. 다 간데 샤워라 코랑게 차셰도 덕시로와 가도다 입다 야치 투텐다 뜻을 때네 아니 디 뉴그레 샤로 다르버지는 속보다 셈다 소하다 내가 제다 질 때네 그래서 다 말에데 다 누구도 다 대기도 다 나샤시 남샤시고 와라 근데 때네 다고데 코랑 차셰도 덕실 때네 아니 그 자와치바 그래서 자와치도 그 자와치바 샤고라 Tene dagwa samla shagores. Dakshile tene lo tanya dogba lo pa tanya ta dipumba res la dikamba res la so ta da de disare. Te samji simba chegora dogba ta sam segdo. Dogba ta sam remado. Ta de dogba ta sam mar dakshida chasha chi yore tele tene de res tambu ningi pa ta lo pa tanya ta so na. O te samji le shagore yoba shagore sungora. Tene Dagbates, Dakshila Tene, Dawsiki Tanyebe Lupa Dagbare. Tetsamlia Kora Simbachegore, Dogbeta, Tetsamli Shagorda, Teta Respa Tarva, Titun Yongeta, Sobo Yongeta, Tindasilia, Tares Tare, Tetsamli Trubarese. Tenjin Debra Joanga, Te Rangwine Tombares, Dagbe Chadipa Kagdoa. Rangwine Trube Tombe Chade. Tene Dagba Des, Cheba Mares, Meva Mares, Tene Dagba Sami Shakures. Sataje Tanya the Tre, Ujo Sute or Tikshe Yora. Satenji Devan Jongala, Tanya Rungudese, the Songudoase, or Tichi Lonchitana.
So,
Lapshan Metro.
lo.
Did you Kazendo? Oh, yeah, yeah.
No. So here, then it is again within the presentation of dependent origination that one should search for the view, and it actually, as it is explained in Nagarjuna's root verses again, or fundamental treatise, that anything's dependent arising is explained as emptiness. So that dependent imputation is itself the middle way. So here, when it comes to searching for this kind of a nature, an inherent nature, anything that is dependent upon causes and conditions, that relies upon the sort of aggregation, accumulation of things coming together for its production, is something that is empty of some kind of an inherent existence. We look at other sort of outside schools that assert that there is, say, production from a self, that like the Samkhyas, that the result actually exists at the time of the cause, but in this kind of unmanifest state. But it is, according to the middle way, the fact that things only arise due to the coming together of various causes and conditions. If there is the sort of proper substantial cause and the proper coordinating conditions, that will lead to the coming about of something sort of adventitiously. It's not from its own side, from the existence of that thing, but rather due to the coming together of various causes and conditions. And that kind kind of dependent arising is explained as emptiness, as that lack of an inherent existence. But if upon hearing that one is to think, well, then are things completely non-existent? Is it saying that anything that dependently arises is explained as emptiness? Is that saying that it's just totally non-existent? Well, no, it continues saying that dependent imputation is itself the middle way. So it is independence upon various parts, and particularly upon our mind labeling something, giving a name to a particular basis of designation, that we can speak of the existence of something. So when we talk about like the self or the I, like, oh, I'm going outside, or I'm going to sleep, or whatever it may be, we designate that I, that self, on the basis of these aggregates. But when we try to search for the thing beneath that label, beyond that label, we can't actually find the thing as it is designated. So here we need to be sort of satisfied with that. When you try to, what is recognized is that there is no kind of autonomous or existence from the side of the object that isn't dependent upon our imputing it, using labels in order to designate that kind of thing. So on the one hand, anything's dependent arising is explained as emptiness. Things come into existence due to various kinds of causes and conditions, and thereby this eliminates that kind of extreme of permanence. There's nothing that is remaining static or permanent. But the second half of the verse, where it explains that dependent imputation is itself the middle way, that eliminates the extreme of nihilism. It's not that things don't exist whatsoever, but they only exist in this dependent imputed way, or dependently designated way, such that we can't find anything absent or independent of our mentally labeling it as such, or mentally designating it. And so this will continue in further verses.
Oh yeah. 다 간지 땡주 많이 배청가 여바 많이 봐. 뒤지 동바 많이 배청가 여바 많이 나 송도 단다다가. 어디 인데 거 근데 때네 다바 돼서 덕시암 차셰 야 차시 시지 차에 지고도 남부 차례 지고도 호텔 때는 바다기 오라. 덕실을 때는 바다기 오라. 차셰를 때는 바로 다기 오라. 될이야 아니고 땡신 대바를 좋아하시. 여바 샤고도 어디 인데다 최탐제 랑게 덕실을 때는 바다바치마도 요 말도. 그래서 최탐제 근데 땡지데 뒤지 땡주 많이 배청가 요바 많이 봐. 뒤지 동바 많이 배청가 요바 많이. 최탐제 땡지데 버리죠 아니. 최탐제 랑원에 주베 동바 인송도 와. 뒤지 대신도 전도래. 당고 물루도 전도 값서 송도 와. 전도래. 간라 동바 니로와. 말이 뒤말이. 전도래로 와. 강시 동다 땡주다 오메람도 땡지 봐. 손조 송바 매바 상제들 차차로세. 강시 동다 땡주다 랑원에 주베 동바 땡진데 버리죠아 강시 동다 땡주다 우메람 딱제데 타니데 제베 우마바 남지 셰베 딱제 타니데 제베 위티스 거도 저주 강가 된다 싶어래 송거라 땡진데 버리죠아 손자 랑원에 동바래 랑원에 주베 동바 손자 현달 떼진데니 주거라 랑원에 주베 동바 손자 딱타다 제와래 땡진 레버는 좀 자체 내가 선서 체다다 저래 오메 람레 되어도 딱지 타니데 제외 기기 람데 되어도 정도래자 가시 동다 땡주도 오메 람도 땡지고 송조 송범에 봐야 상계들 차서로서 오야 뒤지 람나 근데 뭐데 사서요.
So here, continuing, it says, because there is nothing that it does not dependently arise, there is nothing that is not empty. So it is on the basis of designating or labeling on the basis of various parts, or on the basis of a particular basis of designation, that we can posit the existence of things. There is this dependent origination, but no sort of inherent existence. Rather, all things are imputed upon their various bases of designation. And we need to be sort of satisfied with that level of existence rather than searching for something that actually exists from its own side. So here again, because there is nothing that does not dependently arise, there's nothing that is not empty. So here, these are sort of taught as having the same kind of meaning or coming to the same sort of meaning. Quoting from Nagarjuna's refutation of objections, I bow down to the Buddha, whose incomparable supreme teaching shows that dependent arising and emptiness have the same meaning as the middle way. So again, it is due to phenomenons lacking any kind of inherent existence that they are dependently originated. And because they are dependently originated, they lack any kind of inherent existence. These two understandings as well are the middle way in that they are free from the two extremes. That things arise, that they are dependently arising, that eliminates any kind of extreme of nihilism or that kind of nihilistic view. And whereas that they are empty, that eliminates the kind of extreme of some sort of permanence. So here, this, which was, again, this is a sort of praise to the Buddha, who shows that these two, dependent origination and emptiness, have the same meaning as the middle way.
Oh yeah. Tenets of Madhyamaka. Tongba yinbe ngwe namje tenshun tene teshin shi tsungpa mewe nyewa ten songdo. Ngwe na tamje rangshin ki tongba res. Rangshin ki chube tongba. Rangwane chube tongba. Ngwe nam tamje rangshin ki tongba yinbe ngwe namje tenshun se. Ten ngwe bu nam tenshin rebar juwa res. Rangshin ki chube tongba re. Tenshin rebar juwa yoba res. Ti kogu yora. Ngwe bu tamje rangshin ki tongba yinbe ngwe namje tenshun tene Tishinshi tsongpa mewe nyewa tensi. Ta tenda kaso, tinchung da tongpa sede, kodun chikpari si kogu yara. Kapkabla tongpa nila tinchung si songudwa. Sa tenshin rebar chungwa se, dakshita Koran maike dakshita chasha chila teche, lo pa takpa tila shaku yude, ni rangwine tongpa di yungu marto. Rangwine tongpa ina shanla teche relne yueba chi reku yorto. Tongpa tenshun ku tenga, tenshun tongpa tenshun ruwa se, o ti sungudwa, ti inde. Ngobu tamche rangshin ki, tongpa inbe ngo namche tenshun, teni teshin shi tsungpa mewe nyawa tensi. Chasa sanje ki tenche sungpa de, chale teba tanda teba mambu droswa di kare, tenshun rebar juwa sungpa de kaya chenpo shira inba, tongpa sanje chumden de timu ma inba, tenshun inbe tongpa sungya ti, Ti kaya chenpo res tanda lungda su mambu trayan di ti trangi ora. Taga na shen jikden len deba teba le jans. Tunghe rangi cheba tanga. Ta taki shenji niga li kiwa gyumi le kiwa kaya lingi yoba. Kiwa chi yo na taki shenji niga gyumi le kiwa kangrung chi yo kore. Ti kaya meza kiwa yoba mara. Ta kiwa rangu ne yoba mara res chagura. Tanda di le ya. Shenda ni kiwa yoba mara res tanda chagi yoba. Jiten lin debar toba le kyas. Tunghe rangi cheba ta shenji cheta nige che. Kyumi toki wayende, kyo ki tenjin debar sung se sanje chumden deke tenjin debar chunga res. Taki yo ma re, rangi ngoyo chube, kyu tisu rangi tangi yone su ten yonge chi yo ma re. Taki shenji se rangi ne chube, kyu shenji ke rangi ne chube, debu shenji su kewa te yo ma re. Nige le kewa yo ma re, kyu me ne. Kyangpen baga sewa nisi kyu mene kiawa ya yuwa ma resi. Tenchen rebar juwa kiawa resi. Kyu dan kien mambu chila toishen ril, dakshi dan chashe la toishen ril, dokchi la toine, o tenri juwa resi. Tenchen sewa di mambu kwaya dwa, kyu dan kien la tenchen, te dan ril ne, kyu nga ne ni rebu su tenyo tel kogura. Yana dakshi dan chashe la tene, dokchi ki tokbe, takwa la tene, ane lo yu to yungas, lo yu tsame chugas, de le ku yara. O, yu yu to ase, kyo ki tene chungbar song se, kasi, tini kyo ki tongbar shes, tongba ni, kasi, o, niga se, tonghe rangi cheba da shenji chana niga se, kyumi toki wayne, choji tenjin debar sonsa. Tenjin debar kanjongwa, tingi choji tongbar sheyes. Rwa. Ngobu rawa yue meshe, nyame choji sengite, dele rawa do tuba mes, tongba nyil chadwa. Rawa ne tuba, rawa do tuba mes. Di chida teso kapsu songbe, ngonje keba mambo, teso kapsu songbe, tongni chamu yense. Shenda ya tongni chamu ma yense, o tende sonsu yora. Teso kapsu songbe, tongni chamu yense, de rigdo. Ngobu rawa yue meshe, rawa do tuba yuwa mimbade tongni songdo adela. Nyame choji sengite, sengite dare jikba meba, machongite. Ngobu ko nesu ngone da tumba tere, mato taasi chi nesu da me tumba shene jikwa erwa, miki kyan tanga odi maari se kordo, san jikba meba ase. Chitang sanje chum dendege, sungbe sungte su sama. Ore, ta nyetun ki sung shora, ote su sama de, jikba meba machongite songza, senge trishan le shuse sanje chum. Chö sundu, senge trishan le shuse. Sanje chum dende koranga trishan shube kachi choba nganzo, sheching dosi, chum dende rangi ji, senge trishan le shuse, chum dende rangi ji, trishan ji, choji chewe chedo. O, tse, jikba meba machonge de, mi jikba shi, kone machonge. Di pangcha re, kyun re esen, di nechu tumba maari, di ngone re sungba de, mawa de, jikba meba wa. Ngoyo nechu da tumba songza ne, la senge tra se tera. Ngobo rawa yue me she nyame choji senge tra se. Ode, she tende yinbe ju sanje, ane rangshin ji klube tongba songba re. Ta tanda, tende ji ta rangshin mebe tanda, rwa. Tongba songba de, gombo ludu da, sanje chum tende songbe, songba nashin gombo ludu kya, ti nashin gomba de dwa. Tende de peke chambo, tende songza tongba. Tichi tenshun rikban deyi ne, tangen chawa tada chebar sheye songda uma jogba kaso. Tenshin ribar joya rikban degi, rawa taa yuwa san jikten cheba bo yuwa sara, shenda paa sel togyara. Ngoyo nesu ngone de, tenshin ribar joya la shi che ne, shaa togyo ardo. O tichi tuna, an rigdwa.
So here again to quote another verse from Nagarjuna from his 70 stanzas on emptiness, it says the incomparable Tathagata taught that because all things are empty of inherent existence, things dependently arise. So again, things are not established from their own side as they appear, but rather arise due to various causes and conditions. And so it is the very fact that things are empty of inherent existence that they dependently arise. And if they had some kind of inherent existence, they couldn't dependently arise. So here, when we talk about the context of like dependent origination or dependent arising and emptiness, having the same kind of meaning. It's when we have an understanding of one, it deepens the sort of understanding of another. And because, again, we see this sort of praise to the Buddha for various reasons, but really the sort of highest level of praise is that the Buddha, this incomparable Buddha, Tathagata, taught this thing that is unique to the Buddhists, is a unique kind of understanding that is incomparable to any other kind of teaching. And so continuing with another quotation from Nagarjuna, this time from his praise of the transcendent one, it says, logicians assert that suffering is produced from itself, produced from others, produced from both, or produced without a cause. But you taught that it dependently arises. You taught that whatever dependently arises is itself empty. Things have no independent existence. This is your incomparable lion's roar. So here, there are those that assert that things are produced either from from a self that is inherently existent, from another that, or an other that is existent inherently or from its own side, from both or neither. But instead of that, the Buddha taught that things dependently arise. It is only due to causes and conditions that things can come about. And it is, again, dependent origination can also have this sense of dependent relation, in that it is dependent upon parts and dependent upon our mind labeling a particular basis of designation, that we can understand things as being dependently originated or dependently related. And so whatever it is, and again, the Buddha has taught that whatever dependently arises is empty of any kind of inherent existence. And we can get into the kind of, there's sort of talk about whether Nagarjuna's understanding of emptiness is as subtle or sort of within the kind of praise verses. But here we can see that this is clearly linking the idea of dependent origination and emptiness. And it is due to this kind of understanding that the Buddha has what are called the four fearlessnesses. This is something where, because he has knowledge of things exactly as they are, there's no sort of fear that things are going to be wrong or not as they are. So here, again, this kind of teaching that things have no independent existence here is likened to being an incomparable kind of lion's roar, based upon this understanding that whatever it is that dependently arises cannot have some kind of independent existence. And again, here this is identifying that object of negation as independent existence. This is sort of the incomparable lion's roar of the Buddha's teachings. Yeah.
Chö desu sama rangwini truba naya nawa tatu tenpa yo ma res. Tele ya mi kyu pe tang, mi lam ki pe tang rwa. Ane chö nangi dawe pe la so wada. Ane tama tele di chushin ki pe chane. Chidar di ka sura. Chidar chushin lumbe tongbo la se. Chushin lumbe tongbo tele ya pata du chakbo rabchi yoba chi tongi yo no. Ine ko chakbo di rangwini chakbo ke yo ma ra. The Nepal to give you two shine, Pagwan institution, Pagwama the Trabuchi or Marwa, or Tisungura, Chidel Chushin Lombe Tombola, because Nimbu does give you Tisha, and now that Chirukun and Nimbu me, shouldn't come to Tishin Shiba case. And he made an hour and I said, my Mitchell and Lydia get Jankadan, Pabel Sulachi Chas and Gediora, or Tia. Made an hour and I said, my Chidan Chiruba to the one boat Samat Dukudoa, Miwan Nawantosa, or the Zoachama Mare Songuara. Get the one boat that I say, and a Pabel and the Sulachi Chase, the Wode Casera. One boat of the Pembo Tudu Tubarese, the Chama Yongumare, Chama said the Shebal Shawar Songuara, the Echimudoa. The made an hour Shebalas of water, Chama Mesa, Tezola Nawantato. Rangwini truba nangiyo de nawa tato ko tempa ma rese. Ke nawa tato tempa yina, ane ko tsema re do rese. Ane kola rangwini truba nawa de tempa rendo. Kola rangwini truba nawa tempa na shi yina, ane ko ngobe nelu li tsema re do re. Miki shebala so. Ngobe nelu li tsema yina, ane pa thoma beba na ngobe nelu tarto wada tongdong ba re. Ane pakbe lam kumbala tanda yo ma rese. O tende Songodoa, Tanya Chetu Mense at it, Dileora. Did a wombo de that same mission, Monia, Pembo Luma des, wombo to the Pembo, Tudu Drova, the Chamamares, the Shebalisha, what is this Chisongora. Oh, then can't do it, teacher and the matter, Mandasa. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it good. That on the car so was never but to Chubato lesson with. Now, just Shebala Rangun, the Druva, now I didn't know about the Tempayina. Chitanang temme dese. Tata meba maino, now just Shebala now and I should temper matters. You know, it's all the meba matters. But now and I should temper, Rangun the Druva now at the Neluta to Yangura. The Neluta to Yina, 박배 람람서 최고예요. 뭐 도만 배우는 가지고 시제내 중원에도 통사래. 아니 코알에 들어가라 깔래서 자고 말을 정신이 쫀다고 그랬어. 어디 송구도 어디 질람 엔데서 야 드디 질람 그래.
No.
드디 좋아서.
So here, when it comes to, there are those that sort of posit that there's no measure of valid conventional existence. This is the kind of wrong view wherein they're over negating things. So here, as opposed to that, when it comes to things appear as though they really had some kind of existence, like a mirage or like a dream, like the reflection of a moon on water and so forth. These examples will come actually from the sutra, as we saw, like when a person in search of its essence pulls apart the trunk of a green banana plant, like if you look for the essence of that thing, like taking a banana and you're trying to find that essence, that solid thing, and it is the case that things appear to us as though they have this kind of solid existence, this true existence from their own side. But when we search for it, like a sort of pulling apart the trunk of a banana tree, they find no essence either inside or outside. So we should know all phenomena to be like that, that they appear in one way, but they don't actually exist in the way that they appear. And so when it comes to, again, this next often quoted verse that sort of leads to misunderstanding, it says, the eyes, the ears, and the nose are not valid cognition, one could say. The eye, the ear, and nose consciousnesses are not valid knowledge. The tongue, body, and mental consciousnesses are also not valid knowledge. If these sense consciousnesses were valid knowledge, of what use to anyone would the Arya's path be? If it were the case that things and the way that they appear to us as truly existent actually existed in that way, then what need would there be to search for the Arya path, to come to a kind of deeper understanding? It is the case that things appear to our senses as though they had some kind of real true existence from their own side. But when we try to sort of find the thing as it exists, we see that they don't exist in the way that they appear. And so here this sort of string of verses continues by saying, these senses are not valid. Their nature is material and neutral. And again, something that is valid has to be a consciousness. So therefore, those who wish for the path to nirvana must follow the path of the noble ones. So again, if it were the case that the way that things appear to our sense consciousnesses, that they actually existed in that manner, in their like from their own side without being dependent upon anything else, then what would be the point if we had a valid, totally valid kind of cognition of things as they are? What would be the need to search out this Arya path? So this is the kind of conundrum that comes up regarding, again, the Prasangikas would say that our consciousnesses are mistaken with respect to the way that the thing appears, but not with respect to the thing itself. So we'll have to stop there for the time. Yeah. Dixon Gongda.
Oh yeah, Jema Tundade, Nanzu Salujambe de Lingjugi, Korango Tuenda, Tangonema Logins.
So then starting from next week, we will begin the commentary to the Seedling Sutra itself.
Oh yeah,
so the time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you for these precious teachings today, Gen Rinpoche. And Katrina, thank you for your clear interpretation. For all those who are watching online, we hope to see you again next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll close with some dedication prayers now.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. objections. May the light of Losam's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the three worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May the born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, may you stay until samsara ends.
Oh yeah. Peace on. Oh yeah, Baba. Teach.